Now, I've given a few of these presentations before, and I've had quite a few people who ask questions just about the technical aspect. So I want to let you know everything that I'm going to be doing is in Emacs. None of this is, canned. It's all, well, I shouldn't say it's not completely canned. This is all about a day in my life of using Emacs, and I didn't want to type a lot of stuff. I didn't want to do a lot of lorem ipsum kind of stuff. I decided what I'd like is to make it look like I'm getting some real-world examples, which they are, but not having to have anybody worry about me doing any typos. But all the code execution is real. So every step, I'll have I program some things so that it insert it, but all the execution is good. If you're curious about how I do all this stuff, there's a little Melpa project called Demo It. It's, I use them for my sprints in general. Also, I make my org mode a little nicer looking, so I use org bullets to kind of convert the multiple asterisks at the front of the line into a single thing, and then I use the org beautify theme to increase the font size and get rid of the color, so it makes it look more like a word processor and less like a Rainbow Ponies hackathon. So let's jump into. Sorry, hold on. I gotta run this again now. All right, there we go. All right, so let's get the right key here. There's the right one. So my talk is on Literate DevOps, and I wanted to just give a little background on Literate programming. Back in the Mesocene era of computerdom, one of the demigods, Donald Knuth, came up with this concept that he called Literate programming. It's basically an inversion from what we typically do as far as writing code that we sprinkle little comments throughout it, to actually writing prose where we then reinsert the code into it. The idea is that it emphasizes actual communication as opposed to telling the computer what to do. You can kind of think of it like a markdown file. So here I've got some Ruby code on the left, and a markdown, you could actually write this way. And if I put it in this kind of context, it kind of looks more philosophical than anything else. Donald Knuth's ideas were, though, he had a lot more going for it than just a different way of rendering things. I mean, if you think about it, let's see, let's get rid of that, and you could take a markdown file, and you can definitely render it out into a PDF or an HTML file. That's easy stuff. And you could kind of even think of writing a little script to pull it out. But really, it wasn't until I got into org mode that I really got interested in it. So when Karsten Dominic started org mode, it was all about just putting together his notes and organizing that, and which does a great job, right? But since then, we've added this Babel project, which is basically literate programming. It's basically a full-featured literate programming model inserted into org mode. And this allows you to actually take notes, write code, and execute the code right from within your document. This is far better than anything that Knuth had. And it wasn't, so Knuth said basically that was a great idea for when you're trying to clarify your own thoughts. And I read otherwise, or elsewhere, that it says, it's good for when you're dealing with things you're not familiar with. And a couple of years ago, my project was canned, and I found myself on a team doing a lot of DevOps work. And this DevOps work was very unfamiliar for me, and so I was taking lots of notes. Just like what things were installed on what machines, what IP addresses went to what, all that kind of good stuff. And when I realized that I could take those notes, execute the code, and use Tram to actually execute the code on remote servers, things started to become a game changer for me. And that's why I called it Literate Programming, or Literate DevOps, I mean. So, the only way I can really explain it is actually trying to demo it. So a typical day for me is I begin a sprint by creating a org mode file for my sprint. And I use autocomplete with snippet to actually preload my sprint page. Now the sprint page has a whole bunch of headers in it. All of these headers are things that my org capture links expect, so that I can just quickly, like if I'm in a meeting, I can just hit a key and it'll give me a buffer and I'll start taking notes, and they get inserted right here under meeting notes. All right, so let me just sprint. Okay, here we go. Now the next thing that I do once I have all these headers is I'll pull in all of the stories from my project management system. So I'll just pull those all in here, copy and paste them. I'll shrink those down. I think maybe the screen got a little too small, right? So let me just increase that so we can read this stuff. And then the next thing I start doing is just working on my first story. So I'll start going through to websites and doing a little research, copying and pasting, and hyperlinks to these web pages, and basically just taking notes for what we do with OrgNode, right? So at this point, though, I realized that I could easily use my notes to communicate with my team. So here I've got some stuff that I'll type, and I can, I don't know if you're familiar with the expand region, but it makes it very easy for me to highlight a section of code, and now I can mail it. And that's what I want to do. Now there is in the it's the org contrib plus project is a MIME formatter, and it works really good for mail. So I just hit a key, and now that section that I highlighted now has turned into a mail message. Now let me just increase it so you can kind of see what's going on here. Is that big enough? So what it's done is it's created a MIME alternative thing. So there's two sections. You can kind of see it here. Usually you have text plain as the first one, and there it is, the org mode file. So any person that I mail it to that is the Emacs user, boy, they can just take my org mode code right there with everything in it. If on the other hand, my teammates are using inferior but prettier email readers, then it's rendered it into HTML, and so it looks great, especially with the code being syntax colored and everything like that. Kind of slick. And this is kind of where things became far more interesting for me, so that my notes now are not just for me, they're now for everybody, because I can quickly send programs and all the code, especially when I get stuck, which is pretty much all the time. All right, I'm not going to bother my team with this just yet, because I already did that a month ago. So let me just kind of give you my bullet items for how I emphasize communication. There's lots of ways to kind of quickly highlight part of your org mode tree, and then use this org buffer HTMLize. That's the thing that I use to send email. And I also have written a few things for copying and pasting into Slack and into the Skype format and into my wiki and this sort of thing. All of those are really great. The other thing is I find that if I write in past tense, even when I'm taking notes, then I don't have to rewrite it. Instead of saying, I'm just about ready to install this package, all right, I installed the package. That way, when it didn't work, I can show where I went. The other thing is org mode and the Babel project has great ways of keeping the clutter out of what gets exported. And so a lot of what I'm going to show is how to keep that clean. All right, so let's go back to my sprint, and I'm just going to keep working on my little project here. Let's get some code in here. Here's a shortcut. If you use the less than S sign and then hit tab, it will expand that so that you have a little code block here. This is going to be a shell script. I want to install this Flake 8 library. Whenever I'm screwing around in Python or Ruby, I always create a virtual environment, mainly because I know that I'll screw up and have to delete and start the whole thing over again. So these are the commands that I'll type, and of course, would I type that or just copy and paste it from Stack Overflow, right? All right, so let's try it. Now, if I hit Control-C twice, that will run this. And there it is. So now here I've got the results of this. Perfect. Now, if I'm going to send this out to my teammates, the results aren't very interesting. The code is what's interesting. That's what I'm going to want to tell my teammates. So you can actually specify what parts you want to export. So I'm just going to say export the code here, not the results. All right, now let's keep on going here. I gotta fix this here. I screwed up just a little bit. And there's always that part where, you know, when you're on a different computer system here. Hold on. Okay. Let me replace some of this here. Okay, here's my next part. I actually want to run the Flake 8 executable on my code. So let's do that here. I gotta tell it that it's still showing screen. All right, now hopefully I won't hit any wrong keys from here on out. Okay, here's the problem though. Got an error, I need the directory, right? Because my reporter code here is not in my reporter directory, or my org mode file is not in that directory. Okay, so that's fine. I could put a CD line in here because it's just shell script, but I don't want to have that sent out. You know, that's kind of personal to my laptop, right? So in the Babel thing, we have a setting here where we could just put a dir command or parameter, and I can specify the directory that this should run in. Now, this doesn't get exported. Only the code Flake 8 here will get exported. But I can still use Control twice and have it actually run it, and now I'm getting the results that I want. Now, in this case, I'm going to want to send both this code and the results, so I can just put the word export, so I can just say both. And that way, when I email it, I get both of those things. Hopefully that's as clear as mud, right? All right, let's move on to the next story, and I'm going to show just another feature here. In this case, in org mode, you don't have to worry about the language that you use, because we can just specify the language for each code block. This is quite a bit different than Knuth's original model, where he had a special language built in for it. All right, and in this case, I'm just going to type in some Python code here. Oh, this is lovely, except that I've got a little mistake right off the bat, because Python requires very strict attention to indentation. And the nice thing, another nice feature about it, is if you hit Control-C and the apostrophe key, it will bring up your code in a major mode buffer for that language. So here, I'm now out of org mode, I'm in Python itself, and I can, you know, jump to the offending line here, hit tab, I can even select the whole thing, you know, to re-indent everything, edit, shell out the REPLs, do everything that I want to do in Python, and then I can save it, and it copies it back into my org mode file. Now, normally I would not do a lot of programming for the rest of the team this way, but I can start it off that way. And then I can specify the tangle parameter, and this will allow me to have this block of code written out to the file system to set up PY, and then I can check it into P, and away we go. So that was all I wanted to show for this little section. Let's go to the next story here. Now, one of the things you'll see about this, my my org mode file is it's getting long, it's getting complicated. You kind of want to focus. There is, we can use the narrow feature. And org mode has a narrow just to the subtree. So if you do Control X and S, it will just hide everything except for the section of the org mode file that you're using. So that's what I just did there. So you don't have to see everything else, but just what we're working on. All right, let's continue on. Now, for my little reporter project, that little code that I just wrote, there is a sdis command that we can give it to create a tar archive for the project. All right, brilliant. Now I've just created a tar file, but it doesn't actually tell me what the file name is. Okay, I'll come back to that. One of the things I'm going to do with this section is I'm going to start analyzing this tar file, and it's always going to be in the same directory. And now every block of code that I type, I would have to type this dot, or this :dir parameter. What I want to do, though, is I want to hide this example, because you can do that by putting your cursor there, hitting tab, then we don't have to look at that. And then I want to take this section here, and I want to get rid of it and make it so that it's a setting for all blocks of code in this area. So I'll delete this, and I'll put it up as a property. Now, the properties are normally in a drawer where you don't see them. But if I expand it here, you'll see that the dir is just one of these parameters. Now, every block of code that I write from here will use this directory to run things. And you can put everything or anything that you want to be consistent up in there. That makes it a little easier for yourself. All right, so now that the output from that command did not specify the tar file. That's an easy thing to do, right? We just make an ls, and we get the name. Okay, perfect. That's a long name, and it's obviously going to change. Here's another feature we can do. I can name it. Now, naming a block of code is allows me to take advantage of it later on. So here I've got a new block of code, and I'm going to set a variable that I'm going to pass into my script. It's called zip, and it just refers to the name of that block of code. So now when I go up here and I run this, that reporter.tar.gzip here now has a name called tar archive. And now I can run this, and it will pull this whole thing down, and it gets the name as that. Hopefully this is making sense. All right. This is interesting. I did not write all this code. I wonder what's in it. This is the thought process I go through. So let's name this block of code. I'm going to call it contents, or call it table. I'm going to name it contents, but I'm going to have the result be a table now. And now all of the entries from that file, from that tar file, are now listed as an org mode table. All right, so now I can take a look at, say that package info here. Now, package info, that file is located right at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is reference it. Now, the first thing is the row, which I can put -2 to come 2 up from the bottom, and then 0 is the first column. So that file name comes in as the CFG variable. I still use the zip variable from before. And if all goes well, I can see that, hey, here's the contents of that tar file, and there's a whole bunch of unknown values that I'll probably want to fix. All right, let's move on to the next one. So once again, I widen this page so that I can see everything, and I got to the spot where I wanted to go, and I've now just narrowed to this org mode section. All right, now I'm set up with properties here. This is another, I'm going to do the directory, but notice that the directory has changed a little bit. With a slash and this colon here, we're not referring to anything on my local file system. we're now referring to my server up in the cloud. This is using Tramp. And this is just cool. All right, so let's get a block of code here, and I'm going to prove that this works. All right, so I hit Control-C twice, and now it's going to execute this code block. And I hope this works because of my network connection here. All right, so it's made an SSH connection over to my server. It's copied this code over. It executes it. It downloads the results, and there we go. And I think that's pretty slick, personally. Yeah. So let's keep doing this. Yeah, I'll probably need to fix that part, huh? Okay. All right, so I want to find out what are my Python packages that I've installed on this system. And sure, we can type some lovely code like this. Let's see if this works. Yep, it worked. All right, so now I have a list of all the Python packages on my system. Great. I just don't like the output. I don't like this install on the end. Because once again, you want to keep your code blocks nice and clean so if you have to export to your teammates, they don't have to wade through anything. Now, the Unixy way to do that would be just to put colons. All right, nothing wrong here. This is actually going to work, I'm sure. And yeah, okay, so now I have a table of all of these things. But now we're getting into that thing where I'm now putting more code than I really want to show. One of the cool features that the Babel project has is the Tower of Babel, which allows you to have code that manipulates code, these code blocks. Let me show you what I mean. All right, I've created something that I'm calling column 1. And column 1 is a code block, and it's using list. Yay. It's a map car. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a list of lists, and I'm going to loop through that, and I'm going to call car on each one of that. See what this is going to do? I'm getting the first column of this list. Okay. Now what I do is I specify in my old block is I have a post command. Now this post thing will take the output from the command and run it through that code block, assigning the data variable to the output. Okay. So now when I run it, I don't have to have this set line, as it's going to copy and go. Got it. I think that's pretty slick as well, especially when you do not have to have this code in your file. So you can actually have code blocks that help you with your org mode file somewhere else. Let me load up one of them here. Oh, this is too small. Let me make that bigger. So here I have this file. This is part of my Tower of Babel project that I have for myself. You just run Control-C, Control-V-I, and you can load, I just have a few of them, but you can load this up, and now all of the org mode file code blocks are available to everywhere else. This allows you to put all the questions, all the comments, examples, and tests, and everything else. But here I have, it's filtered, and here is the code block. Let me just highlight that a little better. Yeah, it's a little more involved, but that's just because I'm doing a lot of filtering and I have a lot of parsing that I can do. Okay, let's go back and let's use this thing. All right, so here's the same kind of code block that I have above, but in this case, what I'm doing is having this post line. I put the post line on a header line, which is just allows me, so instead of having it here at the end, I can just have it all more easy to read. All right, and I'm just passing in the parameters that I want, including data, which will be the output of this. And yeah, so now all I need to do is remotely call this D package. It will copy the D package command over to my server. It runs it, gets the data back, it passes it through that function that we just saw, and now I've got this nice little column. Now, you'll notice the install's still there, and hey, why don't we put that column 1 with it? Huh? Yes, okay, and this is kind of crazy, I think. So here's the post. I'm calling column 1. The data, though, is this table filter call, which has the data, which is the output. So now let's see if we can get a list of these guys. Ta-da! Lots of magic there. But this is stuff that I've just kind of learned in this last year, some of these features. All right, now, I know what you're thinking. Is this slow? Yeah, it kind of is slow, but here's an option. You can set up here in your properties a session value. Now, once you have a session, that'll allow, it'll open up a connection to your remote server and then keep it open. It won't keep closing it, because everything I was just doing there was opening up a new session. So let's try that out here. Let's get rid of these results. Right. And there. Okay, that took, 3 seconds or whatever. Now I'm going to run it again, and it comes right back immediately because I'm using this session feature. All right, now the other nice thing about using the session feature is it creates it as a buffer. So I can actually look at my session as a buffer, enlarge that, and you can see the commands that are going out, and you can actually influence your session as you go along, setting variables or whatever. Yeah, it's a little cryptic. You've got this little echo thing so it knows where the output is and that sort of thing, but you can kind of parse it out. All right. Now, remote access with Transit are regular Emacs file references, but they have just a little difference. You have to have an initial slash and then your protocol, and I set mine default SSH, but as everybody knows, you can specify some other variations on that thing. You got your host name and it's the colon. Those are the things that it looks for and kicks off to somewhere else. And org mode can take those same references to create hyperlinks. I often use this to point to my source code wherever it happens to live. In this case, I'm just going to click on here, and it will go and download the file from my server. And I'm going to edit it here. And here's where it gets really interesting, as if that wasn't good enough, how much will you pay for this? Okay. So if you go this route, I have a data center where I have a bastion and a jump box that I have to get through to get to my host. And since I'm building a private cloud with OpenStack, I then have to use that to access my virtual machines. So here, if you start with, and you do have to specify the protocol, you can't skip it if you're going to use these pipe things. But here I've got /SSH colon, my first host, and this pipe symbol. Get the second host, pipe symbol, third host, what you can go as far as you want to go, and then you have your colon file of the directory. And in this case, it is quite fun to watch it make SSH connections to one box, use it to make another SSH to the next box, and to get your files and whatnot out. You can also change the protocol midway through. One of the protocols I can use is sudo. So here, this little link here is going to go to my server, and then su to my server again, and then, you can't quite see it, but I'm going to load up Etsy password. And there it goes, going up there, and there it is. There's my Etsy password. It has root on my remote server. Okay, I hope that wasn't too fast. This whole thing was started off with an essay that I wrote called Literate DevOps. Here's the link to it. All my little helpers to help me get through this demonstration is all on GitHub, and of course all my initialization files are all online too. Sammer, do you want to read me the question since I can't see anyone?
Yeah. So I just want to say, can you hear me now?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I just want to say, when you first started remoting to your other machine, like, and was it like, I think you're running like Python there? Like, everyone's jaws hit the floor. That was really, really impressive. And I think, does anyone in the room have questions?
I know I went really fast. I'm really sorry.
Oh, I think it was a fine.
Okay, good. Because this essay should answer a lot of the details that I'm sure everyone is going to have.
Yeah.
But
I have a recommendation if you're going to give this talk again. I really wanted to like sort of try and follow along, like, and I was writing some of the org stuff like in org buffer while you were giving the presentation. So maybe if you give the demo ahead of time so people can, I know like some of it's SSHing into your like personal servers and stuff like that, but it would be cool to have access to that file while you're listening to the presentation.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, I was going to put this whole thing online, including all of the code.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll upload it soon enough.
Cool. So, question, Dan?
I missed the beginning. I'm just curious if you've ever played with Nix and seen it meld with this stuff, or not meld with this stuff.
So the question was if you've ever played with Nix, which is, do you know the package manager?
Nix? Obviously not. I
Oh, so it's like a functional package manager, and the question was whether like this would meld with it. But I guess if you haven't used it,
yeah. Good question. I don't know. There's a lot of styles here. I mean, obviously, as the discussion that we've had earlier goes, there's a lot of different workflows you can use with org mode, from a single page holding everything to lots of little things, and it's the same way with writing this kind of code. This is not the end result. This is I kind of look at this kind of style as sitting between the world of executing temporary stuff in a terminal and writing something like shell scripts or chef recipes or this and something like that. This is kind of in between. I get to keep it around. I get to re-execute it. I have this one org mode file that I use to configure a chef server. And so I just change the value at the top, and I can Control C through the blocks to set it up. Now, normally you would write that as a shell script. The problem is it never seems to work, and I have to debug it. Having little blocks where I can execute it in sequence works out pretty well for me in certain circumstances.
You need to put this on top of it? Okay. One sec, we're just moving. Yeah, so any other questions in the room?
You're bumping the trackpad, so gotta move it this way a little bit.
So there's one question, Jeff?
Well, I just want to say I read your essay
Rotate
months
the tripod
ago,
and then turn
and
it
so
on top of it.
I got to spend some time on this. This sounds really great. So hearing your talk worked out really well.
Oh, sorry.
How many months did it take
Let's
to
get this out of the way.
Proficiency and all the work?
Push this closer in.
Did you catch the question?
Not even close, because somebody's talking and it doesn't have any.
And then,
Yeah,
and then this rotates.
Yeah.
It's something like I recommend anyone learning anything about org mode is you can start very simple and it just kind of grows organically. And I've been playing around with literate programming and org mode for a little while, but when I started adding Tramp to it and running this code remotely on my servers, that's where it became kind of a game changer for me. So it's just been little by little that the techniques have grown up.
Cool. Another question up front?
So you had I think you had the properties setting the session, your SSH session. Can you also use, I think there's was it control master auto? It's like a SSH config option for a host. Can you use that instead? Or is it a different process?
Good question. I think it's using the same thing. I mean, that's the beauty of the way Emacs is kind of set up is everything is kind of built on top of it. You're using a lot of these global variables, right? So Tramp expects, or even the shell commands are expecting, Tramp settings beforehand. So I bet it would, but I haven't actually tried that.
Yeah. So there's one question from IRC from Jabroni, and they ask, how does this workflow translate to non-Emacs users on your team?
It does not at all. I have often powerful wedge, I presume. I have often thought that, hey, wouldn't it be nice to write, some little script that can analyze an workbook file and execute the code and all that, basically reproduce all this. It doesn't seem to make much of a difference, so I use this for myself when I'm investigating new work. I copy and paste and email and Slack a lot of the questions that I have. And so it's not the end result, it's just the path that I use to get to where I want to be. The end result being actual code that I edit and check in again.
Cool. Any questions?
But I'd love it if more members of my team using Emacs, because then we could just swap a lot of this file.
Yeah, just point them to the Twitch stream. It'll convert all of them. Any other questions in the audience? I have one from IRC. From Chris Freeman. Are sessions maintained when piping through multiple servers?
Yes, they are. I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay. And then a question from Akkad, which is...
But I'll warn you is that sometimes that does get gunked up. If the command fails, it can't recognize, what came back. So that does get a little tricky. So I often do not use sessions for those kind of things, and then just kick off the command and make the extra second.
So does that go through Tramp?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And Tramp does... It's solving hard problems.
It's a Tramp.
Yes.
Yes, and it
does have
a
issues.
Problem. It's not foolproof by any means, but yeah, once you get the pattern down, it is pretty slick and it works remarkably well.
Cool. Akkad has a question. Do you use like Slack integration with Emacs?
Well, no, I just export it to Slack. I've been looking at the Slack. Somebody's got a Slack project where they're trying to integrate with the API. It doesn't seem to be complete yet. So, yeah, guess what? I got a fun new project this year.
Cool. And if
anyone wants to work on it with me.
So, there's just one other thing I wanted to read from IRC. So, Python 476, Sasha and Jabroni all said that you did an awesome job at the end where you're like, oh, did you go too fast? And everyone in this room, I think we were all completely blown away by your setup. So I just...
Okay, great. that was all my goal.
Yeah. Cool. So, if you have any closing remarks,
I really don't. I just feel really bad that I was not able to listen to more of the talks today since I was busy trying to deal with.
Yeah, we'll catch them later. But so I do have one question. Can you post the links to all this stuff in IRC too, so it'll be easy for people to check it out?
You bet. Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks, Howard. See ya.
Thanks, Howard.
Okay, ciao.
Awesome.
Woo.